turnaround, only because you can't do in 30. We as city officials would continue to work with those, or taking the citizens' rights away. And everyone except one person who has contacted me, and many people have contacted me on this issue, has said that they do not want to go back to the city manager form of government, and that is the public input that I have been getting on it. Cities and villages in the state of Wisconsin that use the city form of city manager.
Community decides to be the city manager. The current mayor is being paid about $51,000 a year. So my argument is what we need to do, of course, is to elect someone as mayor who has management skills. So I'm running for mayor basically because I want to give something back to this community. I've tried to do that over the years with my involvement in a variety of different activities. The allure to having a manager is you get someone who is presumably has management skills. And hopefully that would be the case, because you'd have to pay to someone probably.
People think I can't remember anything, but I can. All that.
It was a classic example of the power of Lake Superior, the November 27th storm of last year. Huge waves and winds caused extensive damage to the Duluth Lake Walk, a prized tourist attraction. Since that day, some of the damage has been cleaned up, but before the spring tourist season begins, much work remains to be done.
We're looking this year at trying to shore up some of this area between the Vietnam Vets Memorial and the Lake Place area, where the most damage was done with the last storm of November 27th, 1994. There's some stone that's been washed out. There's some damage to the lake shore there that I think we're going to have to come in yet this spring and do some temporary repairs.
The key word, though, is temporary. Estimates to fix the immediate damage run in the neighborhood of $200,000. Longer-term solutions may cost a lot more.
Ultimately, reconstruction of the revetment or shore protection could be in the millions of dollars if some alternatives, less expensive alternatives, aren't feasible based upon the engineering analysis that's going to be done.
Workers at the Duluth office of the Army Corps of Engineers say the answer to the long-term problems of the lake walk doesn't lie here, but rather out there in the middle of Lake Superior, perhaps in the form of a breakwater. Now, Larson agrees with that, but suggests there might be other methods towards achieving the same end.
Another would be rebuilding the shoreline protection, or the revetment as it's called, providing a larger armor stone or a larger cap. Another might be to create a beach out in front of the existing revetment to help dissipate some of the energy that's now overtopping and damaging some of the lake walk.
Larson says it's premature to talk about the long-term solution or the final cost, but one thing is for certain. While it's all being totaled up, Lake Superior will continue to do its work. In Duluth, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News. City Hall. Make sure that...
eliminate and try to promote our desire to have more diverse turf spaces rather than just monoculture green grass everywhere. So it's mainly to change perception and get people to realize that the chemicals that they're applying to achieve that kind of green space do have a lot of real negative effects on our health and on our environment.
That would come under when we start researching what services we offer our community. How much are people and the concerns of those who are...
Direct to Superior, number one. And then number two, for those industries we have.
I don't think we can throw buildings at our youth. If we want to do something with our youth, we need to get out there and be active with them.
Those instances has been at odds with the council.
So as mayor, what I would do is I would be working to help revise that juvenile justice law to make sure that young people understand that there are direct and quick consequences to their acts. The other part of it is this business about activities. I think what we need to do is to have a...
Hi, this is Carol.
Margaret Saccone is no stranger to city government. For 18 years, she's come to know politics behind the desk of city clerk. She says her campaign message is simple: communication between the city council and the mayor, something she feels was a problem in the past.
I think what has been lacking in a lot of the things that and causes a lot of strife on the council is they get one proposal with limited information and really not enough time to discuss it with anyone or talk about it.
You can spot a few of her signs, but for Saccone, it's been difficult to aggressively campaign against her opponent, Pete Moran, because she's already fighting one battle: breast cancer.
I know people are concerned. I had wonderful people come forward and say, either I've had this or I know somebody who did, and so as far as coming out with it, it has been very positive.
Margaret Saccone and her opponent Pete Moran admit that they both agree on some issues, so what it may boil down to for the voters is just who is a better manager.
That I believe that I have the high-level management experience in terms of directing operations of large units or large activities, such as the city, 300 civilian workers here in the city, as well as managing large budgets.
Pete Moran has taught classes in management at WITC for 25 years. While he's out shaking hands, he's talking about
property tax relief, property tax relief, property tax relief. And to be more specific, what I have done is I've developed a written plan for doing just exactly that, because property tax relief is the key issue here in this campaign.
So while both Moran and Saccone have some similar ideas on what the mayor should do, they're both hoping when you look over one of these on Tuesday, you'll put a check in front of their name. In Superior, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
This airplane will perform more like what people would have considered a high-performance airplane in the past. We don't consider it high performance. From our point of view, the definition of entry level has changed.
At the core of the issue, the city's short versus long-term plans, separated in the task force recommendations. District Executive Director Kurt Soderberg says the city's funded short-term plan is fine, but the long-term one isn't due to disagreements between City Hall and the City Council. Soderberg says the city should commit to a long-term plan and then follow through.
I don't think we're rushing them. I don't think we're doing anything that's unreasonable. They've got due time for deliberation and for study, and then we want a commitment that whatever their plan says, they will actually follow through on.
But some in the city say the district is using prime projects to force the city into a more expensive solution.
The Northwest Airlines project, whenever that happens, there's some lines that have been brought in that haven't been allowed to be hooked up. There's also a number of new homes that will be coming online that need to get hooked up, and WLSSD is saying that if we don't do everything their way, they're not going to let us hook anything up.
Soderberg says it's not that drastic. Hookups for the Airbus base and Bayfront Mall projects aren't in danger if the city commits to a plan.
We, the sanitary district, are not capable of sorting out who's right. We just need to get the commitment of a long-term plan from the city as one entity.
Soderberg is proposing 4 changes to the task force recommendations. First, a revocation of the city's approved status for the 1994 I&I plan, a formality to require the city to submit a new plan. Number 2, approving the current short-term plan which the district likes. 3, stating the Duluth strategy can't be complete without a long-term plan. And finally, placing the city on a quarterly review system to ensure a long-term commitment. Once that happens, Soderberg says final approval for the Bayfront and Northwest projects could come this summer, and the city would be one step closer to solving its sewer problem. In Duluth, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
There were lots of hugs and smiles after Margaret Saccone got word that she was the new mayor of Superior. Today, she took some well-deserved time off to soak it all in.
Well, I'm feeling very good, very excited, and today is the day where you kind of pinch yourself and say, it's over and I've won, and it's really exciting.
Voters put her well above her opponent Pete Moran last night with over 4,000 votes in her favor. Pete Moran says he'll go back to what he calls a great job, working with students as marketing professor at WITC. He told us over the phone that he felt like $1 million today and that he'll be supportive of Margaret Saccone while he finishes out his term as city councilor. Saccone says it's obvious Superior residents were ready for a change, and she's ready for the challenge.
There were a lot of people who didn't think that because Superior is a traditional community, they didn't know if they would take on or vote in a woman. And I think they're saying, hey, we are ready to move on.
In Superior, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
The numbers are very positive. The Wisconsin Department of Labor and Industry says February's unemployment rate in the Duluth Superior area was 5.2%. That's down 1.5 points from a year ago.
The strength in northern Minnesota, northwest Wisconsin centers on the various industries that are prevalent here, transportation, taconite for northern Minnesota, the timber industry, and those industries are going to be strong throughout the remainder of this year.
While service industries provide a strong percentage of the job market, increased job opportunities in the trades are adding to the rosy picture.
That seems to be the case. There's been an awful lot of building going on in northern Minnesota. There's been particularly in the expansion of retail sector, but also in other industries as well.
That's good news for organized labor. In years past, unions had problems finding jobs for their members. Now, projects like the Potlatch expansion and the IMAX Theater in Duluth mean there might be a shortage of skilled help.
The only concern we have is make sure we have enough people available for work. And we of course, called other local unions in the area, and fortunately, there's some that don't have as much work as we do, and we can draw from them.
Gerald Peterson says the job picture should stay positive as long as the national economy improves. In Duluth, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
Everything will be in place, hopefully. We still have a couple of hurdles to jump over. However, we've been jumping over hurdles for quite some time now.
They're not using appropriate forms, so they'll use an EZ or an A when they should be using the long form to 1040. Other things are the correct filing status. Some people who claim single are eligible to claim head of household.
What that means for local residents is it's able to keep their costs down in terms of their taxes. If you were to totally eliminate a lot of that, they immediately would see the difference in the sense of having to pay more and do more.
Well, I don't know, every kid sees their favorite rock and roll star up on the TV or videos, and they kind of, gee, I'd like to try that, and so they go out and get a guitar or drum or bass or whatever, and they start playing.
I look into your eyes and something stirs inside of me.
Yeah, everybody wants to make it. Everybody wants to, have something heard, a nationwide audience. I've actually been to parties where they've played in basements, garages, back decks, patios, yards. Of course, you got your bar scene.
I think every band wants to make it big, but around here it's a little tough.
But to me, it's not really about the money. It's about just being able to play. I know that sounds really cliched, but it's what it is for me. I like to play my guitar.
I personally have aspirations of making it big all the way because this is what I want to do with my life since I was a teenager.
So what does it take for a Northland band to make it big?
The persistence to continue to keep playing, just keep playing and doing what you love to do.
Nah, she doesn't look like a handful, does she? When you're 9-year-old and Kelsey's your baby sister, certain responsibilities just fall into your lap. Now, saving her life, that definitely was not in Nick Wilson's job description.
My sister, if she would have been gone, she does a lot of fun things with me and I like her. And if she was gone, I don't know what I would do.
Nick's parents are building their dream house themselves.
This is about it, here.
That means things like sheetrock are sitting around.
Up against the walls, 4 of them.
4 of them, and each piece weighed more than Nick. When Kelsey was playing with her favorite little red truck and ran smack into them, 360 pounds of sheetrock began to tumble over on her. Little Nick, all of 60 pounds, ran, caught, and held the first one, but the rest was too much.
The whole pile was laying down, and I saw, his shoulders on up. I was lifting the pile, and Kelsey crawled out from that end of the sheetrock, crawled underneath the pile out from the other end.
Kelsey was fine, but Nick had fractures in both arms, had to have these little metal plates in them, and it took him 9 months to get better.
He did what he thought he had to do and didn't worry about the consequences. Kind of proud of him.
So are the Boy Scouts. It'll be 2 years before he can even join them, but last week they gave him their highest honor, a National Life-Saving Award. Hopefully future merit badges are a little easier to earn.
We thought, well, there's a lot of chairs around, just collecting dust in people's attics, and why not get those chairs and paint them and sell them, and then the money can go for the homeless kids.
Money. The key is to have the courage.
Go to the city and do it, where their package is 40% of their salary.
And then looking at what you got and seeing whether or not you need to do it, the kind of money that you're talking about. We did it.
By putting together stricter guidelines for what it will be included as income, how you count income. This is county money. This isn't reimbursed dollars. This is all locally derived tax money.
Well, as a student, I guess I'm worried about the contract directly as a student because it's if the loans and grants are being threatened by the the people in Congress.
is that I don't think anybody's leaving this courthouse today feeling that Douglas Toll did not get a fair trial. And that's been the objective of everybody involved here. He's indicted, enough probable cause for first-degree murder, aiding and abetting. This jury, hearing all the evidence, obviously felt that maybe he should only be responsible for manslaughter first degree.
Well, I'm sad. I didn't think he should be convicted of anything. But half a loaf is better than none.
Extra. Walski at first, Barrett at second, home at short, great at third to start off, and the other guys that are hitting later just stay around the cage, then I'll switch guys around, okay? As far as the defense goes. All right, man? Ninth hitter is Karras. 10th hitter is Dilly. 11th is Lux.
That's the way it's right, John. Don't change it on
On
here.
the road that has existed here, trucks were not able to stay in their own lane when they made that curve, and which really turned out to be a dangerous situation and not a very efficient situation for moving traffic. What we're doing with this design is improving that curvature, also adding a couple of turn lanes so that more traffic can be handled and in a more safe fashion.
Comments to brief you, and after that we'll open up for questions.
We took the information that we received to put together a site plan that we feel will be acceptable and meet the needs and requirements that were requested by the people that attended the hearings. This site, of course, is at the intersection of McQuaid Road and Scenic 61.
And as we have on the maps that are behind you, it's indicated that where the property lines are as to private property that would be involved.
And will be in operation. Tourists are important to our economy, very important to our economy. They contribute multi-millions of dollars to our city every year. But beyond that, the people of the city of Duluth as well come down here and enjoy the attractions that we have.
Extremely cooperative. I mean, we have a meeting tomorrow with all the employees to go over what their options are. The partners have agreed to help with some re-employment assistance. So we've got a group called Right Associates coming in who will give them what some of their options are. Some of these people have never put together a resume and haven't thought about new employment, and the intent is not to leave them out in the cold. This was a disappointment for all of us, so we're going to do what we can to help the people out. Personally, how is this needed for you? Extremely disappointing.
We feel that MPNL has let us down.
But they might argue that they tried to save it as long as they could, but it was a losing proposition?
I think decisions were made at the top, and the employees didn't have enough input into this decision making.
I got my friends like Art Christensen calls me up, asks me what I'm doing.
Oh.
What are you doing? I said, don't worry about it.
That's all. Ken?
Yeah, talk to Ken.
Ken?
Crazy?
I got my friends like Art Christensen calls me up, asks me what I'm doing. What
Oh.
are you doing? I said, don't worry about it. I'm going to be out golfing and fishing.
So you sure you don't want to talk? Is there anybody else in this group that...
A 21-gun salute marked the dedication of the new Peace Officer Memorial in St. Paul. It is a 10-foot granite fountain, but strangely, unlike other memorials, there are no names listed here. It says simply, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." The hope being that this memorial is as much about those who are serving now as those who have given their lives in the past.
It is an important reminder of the dangers and risks associated with the job. An important warning to be careful out there. It is the boost our officers need when the job gets them down. Like when one of their own is gunned down for no particular reason, except that he was a cop.
A cop like Gary Wilson, a son of a police officer, a husband, a father, a friend, and the last Duluth policeman to die in the line of duty. It was April 9th, 1990. Police called to a shooting at the Midway Bar in the West End. Here's how Channel 6 reported it that night.
Duluth police surrounded the Seaway Hotel in the city's West End shortly after 10 p.m. after a shooting at a nearby bar. They suspected the shooting suspect had fled to the hotel where he was a registered guest.
Police officers Gary Wilson and John Hartley were outside the suspect's door at the Seaway Hotel. Police officers knocked on the door. 47-year-old Lawrence Montanaro answered by firing an M1 rifle back through the wall, killing Wilson and wounding Sergeant John Hartley.
The traumatic part about it, not only the injuries myself, but of course Gary's death was the most traumatic thing for everybody on this department, and obviously his family and friends.
Moments before the traumatic shooting, Gary Wilson had briefed reporters on the ongoing situation.
That's all I have for now. Okay?
Okay, and your name, sir?
Sergeant Wilson.
Sergeant Wilson?
Thanks.
First name?
Gary.
Moments later, Wilson lay dead, the ultimate sacrifice. The new Peace Officer Memorial ensures that people like Gary Wilson who make that sacrifice are never forgotten.
For sporting goods stores, the day before Grandma's is the biggest day of the year. All day long, runners in need of last-minute items keep stores busy.
Socks and singlets and shorts are a big item. A lot of people are buying shoes, though. People that run occasionally are coming in looking for shoes. They want to start running and everything, so we try to help them out, too.
There's an unintentional benefit to that thinking. Spectators see the marathon coming and want to get into shape themselves.
A lot of people are buying shoes just to start a program, an exercise program, and they'll be running today and watching the runners tomorrow, and hopefully they'll be running through the rest of the summer.
And with all the traffic through the stores, runners get a chance to talk with each other and share the marathon excitement.
It's fun to be here too, to meet the marathoners and talk to them, and it gets you excited, even if it's probably would be better to have your feet up. We're done. Okay, like 3/4 of the people are walking.
This year?
Well, every year.
Every year? Really?
Yeah, they're almost all walkers to half.
It's an emotional issue that goes straight to the heart of our society. With the numbers of single-parent families on the rise, the custody system is coming under increasing scrutiny from fathers who say they're getting the short end of the stick.
It's outdated, and they didn't change it after they put the no-fault law in. So it's an old age practice with new laws that the judges do not recognize.
That's why Teamwork for Justice was formed. The group wants to reform what it sees as faults in the system and met today on the courthouse steps to make their statement.
Fathers are parents too. They are just as responsible for taking care of their kids and stuff, but the children want to be with their fathers, can't be because of the court system, won't allow it.
The group wants reform in the custody system as a top priority, saying the current system is unfair. Norman says it builds frustration among men and used as an example a man who threatened to blow up the county building last week.
Everything in his world was taken away. His kids, everything he worked for was just taken away. When does it stop? You want to stop violence in Duluth? Start right here at the courthouse. Have some fair laws.
While the group doesn't condone the man's actions, they do say it indicates a need for reform. Allied groups want people to go to court and fight for their rights.
Who knows your case better than you do? The court system is supposed to be ours. We should be able to go in there and fight for ourselves.
Posse's initials stand for people objecting to society's system of intervention. Teamwork for Justice is applying for incorporated status to allow it to solicit funds, which would mean an entirely different type of intervention. In Duluth, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
Well, I think it would have been really nice if the judge would have taken the sentiment that he expressed at the very end when he talked directly to Douglas Toll and put that into the actual sentence, put it into action and impose a more serious and more consequential sentence because of what he did.
Well, I think it was, given the circumstances, a fair sentencing. We'd hoped that it would be cut in half because Doug Toll was a passive participant in the slayings. And we thought that a half sentence would be appropriate for his passivity.
As Northland temperatures continue to surge toward 90, the challenge to stay cool is becoming more difficult, both mentally and physically. The first serious heat wave in 7 years has caused Hermantown city officials to place restrictions on watering, only allowing residents to water their lawns between midnight and 6 a.m.
No, we've really never had this type of unusual weather in this quick of short span that we've had. So it's kind of unusual weather and kind of unusual circumstances.
The restrictions are the first ever in Hermantown and are slated to last 1 week, unless the unthinkable happens.
I anticipate if we get some weather and some rain in the weather or in the forecast that the ban will probably be off even before a week is over.
Minnesota Power says demand for electricity is, in some cases, exceeding its usual peak months of winter. Fans and air conditioners are being purchased from local stores at a brisk rate, and convenience stores are moving anything and everything that will help keep a Northlander cool.
There's been a tremendous increase in business with the temperature. As the temperature rises, business goes up commensurately. So it's been a lot of fun, and ice deliveries are probably 3 or 4 times what they are in the off season. So business is going real well right now.
If staying cool physically wasn't hard enough, this heat continues to put undue stress on the nerves of residents and those who work outside.
Over the hill there, it really shows up. Downtown here, we've been doing some jobs down Lakeside and down here on London Road. That helps compensate for some of the heat, cooler temperatures.
In Duluth, John Jetta, Channel 6 News.
It's variable. We do about 5,000 a year.
Stay here and...
In EMS, we also like to be proactive. We like to be prepared before we actually get to the scene, psychologically and physically. This will help us be able to achieve that a little bit better.
Limit, somebody who's obviously drunk, it's easy to pick out. Some of the ones who are maybe right around a .10, the field super.
How long were these classes?
It was 3 days.
It was 3 days,
Yeah.
so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I did go through it on the road to do speed enforcement. And we want to let the public know that we're doing this ahead of time to get them to slow down voluntarily. We would prefer to have drivers be aware that speed's a problem and that we are putting extra enforcement efforts into it, and that they run the risk of getting a ticket, and hopefully then they'll slow down on their own.
Chickenpox is rarely more than an unpleasant condition for children, but because it's so contagious, it does have a habit of upsetting family schedules. For that reason, there's been a huge clamor from parents to make available an inoculation that prevents kids from getting the disease.
This vaccine has had over 20 years of research and development and has been in use in many parts of the world for some time now.
The vaccine has recently received approval from the American Food and Drug Administration, and this week it arrived at a few clinics in the Northland. But just because it's here doesn't mean you or your kids can get a shot just yet.
I really want to see what the risks are versus the benefits, and I want to see what the standard in the community and what the standard in the nation is.
The main concern is with the drug's side effects. 3 in 1,000 will experience minor side effects, including nausea and fever, but 1 to 2% could suffer more serious complications, including inflammation of the brain and other internal organs, and even death. Even the FDA has some lingering concerns. Because the inoculation is only thought to be effective for up to 7 years, people may have to continue to get boosters.
Then when they grow older, they need to keep their vaccinations up. If they don't, and most adults are bad at keeping their vaccinations up, are we setting this generation up for one more problem that we don't experience now?
While chickenpox seldom causes serious problems for kids, it can cause severe complications for adults. The bottom line is this clinic is going to wait until there's a stronger set of guidelines from the Center for Disease Control before they start randomly giving the chickenpox vaccination. In Duluth,
Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
And that government isn't supposed to be there for the public. I think this is a very important, is to commend INS, immigration.
And deal with problems like this. This is not one of the world's great events, but I think it is an example of how small changes by government, which may not even affect a lot of people, can make a very big difference.
Yes, this is just great. It really is.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate what's been done. This makes things much easier for us and a lot of other people in the area. And I think it's been pointed out already, it shows that government does listen.
Now what we did was basically readjust the horn, and as a result of that the power drops to half, the power being emitted by the horn. And that's all I can say from a technical point of view. But you're going to find it can vary all the way from almost nothing if the wind is in one direction to something fairly loud if it's in another direction.
Coming in, I don't know if you've noticed, but AT&T Corporation, our old parent company, has just pulled down. They're already in. And there's video dial tone. I mean, today the technology exists. Our expectations here are that we get about a 10 to 15% take from our residential customers in terms of the availability, and that's really quite high for a new feature. The plus side of that, though, and think about this. Right now, well, what we see coming in, I don't know if you've noticed, but AT&T Corporation, our old parent company, has just purchased Cellular One. They're now called AT&T Wireless Communications. That's local phone company. They're wireless, but they're local phone company. AT&T has announced they're going to place.
He was very upset. He was crying. He was saying, Arnell, I don't understand.
Well, you can't tell us what?
Sorry.
Okay,
he was saying, he was very upset and emotional.
North Shore was an excellent property. We've been interested in it for a long time, and when we had the opportunity to acquire North Shore, we took it last October.
Since then, things have been looking up for North Shore Mining after the company received a $6 million investment from Cleveland Cliff Incorporated to expand its plant in Silver Bay. The investment was kicked off with a ribbon-cutting ceremony to unveil the restoration of the plant's furnace number 6. After working 5 months, technicians say the restored furnace will boost the company's production.
It will produce production at the rate of 800,000 tons per year. So it'll also increase the productivity and profitability of the plant itself because of the extra tonnage that will be produced.
Production is not the only avenue of change at North Shore Mining. With a revamped furnace, 40 new jobs will be created to bring the total number of employees up to 460 employees in various areas. Company officials say this investment, with the help of the employees, will set North Shore Mining apart from other companies in the taconite industry.
Well, it's a very competitive business, and we work very hard to keep our costs down. That is the secret to supplying the steel industry. We need to provide low-cost, high-quality pellets. We feel North Shore is one of those properties that fits that mold.
With mining companies scrambling to receive contracts from East Coast steel companies, Cleveland Cliffs investment plans to restore faith and hope for a prosperous future for this mining community. In Silver Bay, Quinn Mosby, Channel 6 News.
Lloyd Anderson of Cloquet, early in his lifetime was in the Army, and he was assisted by the Salvation Army. They gave him a ride home. So he remembered that all his life and donated his entire corporation to the Salvation Army. Part of which is this new store. So, and most of the residents around here will know that Cloquet, this was Lloyd's. They knew to come here for their sporting goods. Well, and I think he would be proud that it has changed into the Salvation Army, which he asked it to become. And
In 1979, Bill Lashman and his wife, Susie, formed B&S Research, a company that worked with farmers to remove chemicals from their soil. But in the finest entrepreneurial spirit, Lashman saw an opportunity to grow after the EPA declared standard floor dry a hazardous material.
This is something that we ought to try to do, is figure out how to recycle floor dry so it wouldn't have to keep going into the city dumps and the county dumps and et cetera, that it could be reused time and time again.
The answer lay in microorganisms. After careful research in conjunction with UMD, the result was BioCleaner 150, a product that uses bacteria to destroy hazardous waste. It's technology unique in the United States. Lashman and his two sons now run a business on the cutting edge of environmental technology.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. It's something I can get some gratitude out of because I know I'm doing something that's good.
I've been around agriculture most of my life, and from what I've done in the past and seen in the past, this is a totally different program than what anybody else is doing.
The company is even taking some of that technology overseas. A sister company called Farm for Profit is working with the German government to clean up sites in the former East Germany, some of which have been contaminated with chemicals for nearly 100 years.
We've gotten preliminary results back on the industrial sites, and the 30 and 45-day tests analyses, we got over 80% and in some cases over 90% clearance of the contamination.
It's those kinds of results that may put B&S Research into the international spotlight and what makes it a profile of success. In Embarrass, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
They'll send it to you so you don't have to do anything until you hear from Muskegon District. All right, Lou.
Every year the lockup does better as people get more used to the program and they understand how much fun it is. We have new jailbirds every year, so new people get to experience the fun.
Who's this, Chad or Craig? Oh, okay, Craig. So I was wondering if it'd be something big.
Yeah, Jim in?
Carlson.
Yeah, I don't know.
too and play those.
They come north from Australia and New Zealand, south from Canada to compete this weekend. One of the most entertaining events is log rolling. The loser always gets soaked. But not Phil Scott from Nova Scotia. He's so good, he doesn't even bother to change into shorts like everyone else. Scott learned to log roll the real way on Canadian rivers as logs floated to his father's sawmill.
So yeah, I'm probably one of the last of the Mohegans that started from the actual roots of river driving.
Now, when most people think of lumberjacks, they think of one thing: big burly men with big beards and big red flannel shirts. However, you're not going to find that here this weekend. Most of the lumberjacks competing here are world-class athletes.
No, there's a persona about a lumberjack that we're changing right now. As you look around, Bill, you can see that these are incredibly fit people. They cross-train, they bike, they run, and chop and saw as well. And these are young and old, lean, fit athletes.
One of the most fit is Dave Jewett from upstate New York. He is the reigning co-world champion. Your parents make you go out and chop firewood for the house?
They don't make me. Yeah, I'm out there volunteering. It's good practice too. You know, just splitting firewood. You actually work on your chopping techniques.
Jewett hopes to regain his crown this weekend by completing a number of chopping and sawing events and climbing to the top of a 90-foot pole. The Lumberjack World Championships are open to the public. They continue through Sunday. In Hayward, Bill Lund, Channel 6 News.
Maybe there will be some plea negotiations. Who knows? It's real. It's a concern, but I mean, we pay taxes to keep dangerous people off the streets, so we don't argue for it unless we feel it's... I guess I think that that's a possibility. Thankfully, we haven't had any retaliation against anybody so far, and I'm hoping that means people are realizing that this kind of violence is just going to get worse, and they might as well stop it now. But the argument has been to the court that the activity of the juvenile is dangerous, and that also he's in danger of possible retaliation. The court accepted that argument, but felt that secure detention in a facility was not necessary, but in a lesser restrictive environment on electronic monitoring.
Okay, perfect. Exactly.
Real close. Real close. Living and taking care of children. I mean, my foster parents went through the last few days thinking, geez, I don't know.
Campaign. If it were just me as a candidate and speaking for myself, I guess I wouldn't take it too seriously, and I really would continue on with the campaign. But I have to also realize I'm a mother first, I guess.
Hey, you think it's possible you actually come down?
I feel good, okay? That's all we wanted was the verdict to come back our way, okay? I don't really care of the time that he gets, okay? At this point right now, I'm just glad the verdict came back the way he wanted it to. They were all, I believe, they're all intoxicated. Sure, my brother might have been intoxicated, but they are the ones that were harassing my brother. And this is what it led up to. And I'm sorry that my brother's gone, okay?
We very much.
Yes, we do.
It's going to be very much.
But, like I said, the verdict came the way we wanted it, and we are very happy.
It's going to cause some more difficulties in the neighborhood as far as more traffic problems and also possibly some more dangerous accidents in the area.
I want to emphasize that we do not have any specific information indicating that airlines or airports or any other part of our national transportation system is specifically threatened.
Establishments that have gone up. We have been involved working.
Of everybody.
What would you like to see, say in
The building trades has developed a rapport with Mayor Doty through his last term, and the mayor has cooperated with us on projects such as the Airbus, the Bayfront Mall, Washington High School, and we feel that he is the best candidate.
For over 20 years, Voyageurs has been Minnesota's only national park. Now that status is being questioned as Congress looks at a huge deficit in the National Park Service budget.
The purpose of the hearing is Congress is looking at all the national lands, whether it's national parks, Bureau of Land Management lands, and trying to come up with a prioritized list of, given the funding that they have, and what prioritized and how they're going to be funded. And they chose International Falls as one of their first hearing sites.
When Voyageurs was established in 1971, the government promised that businesses in the park would do well economically. Instead, restrictions on boating, snowmobiling, and flying blocked business and caused significant loss of revenue. Congressman Jim Oberstar has introduced legislation that would lift virtually all those restrictions.
Legislation I have introduced will restore the original purpose for which the park was intended, to make it a year-round recreational facility, a multi-use facility that responds to the concerns and the interests of the resorters whose livelihood is dependent upon the park.
But environmentalists say the importance shouldn't be on the economy, but the preservation of the wilderness for future generations.
If the area is downgraded, that we'll lose the ability that the Park Service has, its expertise to protect the waters, the plant and animal communities. The National Park Service has over 100 years of traditions of excellence in interpreting and protecting areas.
Senator Paul Wellstone will be one of the lawmakers in International Falls. He says he hasn't decided yet as to how he'll vote.
I love this state. Sheila and I love northern Minnesota, and my answer is yes. I think that the vast majority of people will look for a middle ground and will look for a way to avoid the bitterness and will look for a way to solve some of the problems that I think people are justifiably so focusing on.
Hundreds are expected at the hearing, which is expected to be emotional and intense. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
This used to be lush green forest, but now it's been reduced to a wasteland of soot, ash, and burned out trees. Fire crews are now traveling deep into the woods to contain the fire, and to do that, they're using explosives.
Fireline explosives is an effective tool for the wilderness. It is a low-impact fireline building tool. It's an alternative to a hand line or a dozer line, which the hand line would be hard to dig in here. It'd take many hours to do, where the fireline explosives doesn't take very long at all.
The explosion will clear an area where the firefighters can work to create what they call a fire line, or a buffer zone, to keep the fire from spreading. Meanwhile, the fire is also being fought from the skies. The Sky Crane can handle 2,500 gallons of water at a time.
Right now there are 5 American helicopters on the fire, and I think there are about 5 or 8 Canadian helicopters on the fire. Air tankers, there's 2 air tankers available in Ely. We have an air attack who's in a fixed-wing aircraft over the fire.
Meanwhile, the big concern remains the Canadian fire burning to the north and the possibility that it could connect with the American fire. But fire officials say Americans and Canadians are working closely together to ensure that that doesn't happen.
This is a combined effort on a fire. The fire doesn't respect national boundaries. The fire is burning, and the team is going to be working.
Canadian officials say their larger fire is now 75% contained, and favorable wind conditions from the south are preventing the spread toward the Sag fire.
We feel pretty comfortable today that if we put in a good, long, hard day, that we have a 75% chance of success of keeping our fire from spreading too much farther beyond its present boundaries.
Area businesses are showing their appreciation to firefighters in a variety of ways, including donations of food and this sign. Meantime, fire officials say they hope to have the Sag fire under control by Sunday. Bill Lund, Channel 6 News.
And then there's Park Place, which is calling and the letter writing, and those things go.
This is what we're used to, Windows 3.1, and its pretty boring, often cluttered, and confusing screen. With the old Windows, eventually, you had to know things like autoexec.bat, and you could only do one thing at a time.
That's what we're used to with the old Windows. With Windows 95, prepare yourself for a whole new look.
Goodbye screen clutter. No more file manager, no more autoexec.bat. Instead, there's this, the start button. Microsoft is so geeked up over this that they've paid the Rolling Stones $12 million to use this song and promote Windows 95. You click the Start button, and you go to Programs, and there they all are. All the applications on your PC, cascading out, simple, easy, ready to be mouse-clicked. You want to get rid of a file? No problem. With Windows 95, you drag and drop it into the recycle bin. Want to run more than one program at the same time? That's called multitasking. Windows 95 does it. There are other things. Suppose you want to add new hardware, a sound card, a hard drive, a modem. Windows 95 has plug and play. The program senses what you've done, it identifies the hardware, and configures it automatically for you, all behind the scenes. Now, all this, of course, is what the Macintosh has done for years. But with 100 million Windows users out there compared to 12 million Mac users, well, Windows 95 is a big deal.
Well, it's going to be the biggest thing for the computer industry and probably history.
It may be for the book industry, too. At last count, 450 titles have been announced for Windows 95, books on everything from how to install it to how to program it. Starting Thursday, most of the major manufacturers are loading it as the standard operating systems on their machines. Microsoft expects to sell 7 million copies of the $89 program the first week. The main reason why Microsoft is so optimistic, Windows 95 has proven to be compatible with almost all of the 16-bit software now being used by the old Windows. And new software that takes advantage of Windows 95's 32-bit processing speed promises to run almost twice as fast.
Just a lot easier to use. I can do things like have long file names, so I can name things much longer than just 8 characters. I can also easily move information between applications because it's a much more intuitive interface.
But before you upgrade, understand this. You need a pretty heavy-duty PC. Windows 95 requires a minimum of 35 megabytes of hard disk space, 65 megs if you take advantage of all of its features. And for minimum performance, you need to have at least a 486DX33 with a 540 meg hard drive and 8 megs of memory. That, though, is just the minimum. To really see speed increases, you should have a 486-66, or better yet, Pentium with 16 megs of memory. With High Tech Talk for NBC News, I'm Mike Wendland.
So they'll take care of their blind guests.
What about,
Not at the schools, so I wouldn't have to do that. Exactly, I know it. See, that's the thing about the Japanese culture is that a lot of times they don't. Well, I was here at work at Lincoln School, and I literally went down onto the floor. My knees went out from underneath me. I was just so excited. I was like, it was just remarkable. So the entire time she was there, she was doing something that would be like further, because I know I'll be making a lot of mistakes. I don't know whether they're going to close the door on the way out. Something that even the teacher that was there for 6 months before me would the inside of it, but I haven't. I don't have a. I mean, if I walk by it, I wouldn't recognize it.
thing for the, the computer industry and probably history.
It
A lot easier to use. I can do things like have long file names, so I can name things much longer than just 8 characters. I can also easily move information between applications because it's a much more intuitive interface.
She be given a seatbelt.
Will T. Scott's client, Morgan County school bus rider Shauna Sparks, claims she and at least one other student wouldn't have sustained injuries 2 years ago if the bus she was riding had seatbelts.
Because the girl that was thrown out of the seat on the bus, she wouldn't have fell out of her seat and I wouldn't have fell. And it wouldn't have happened if there was seatbelts on the bus.
The school district counters that seatbelts have nothing to do with Sparks' lawsuit. And they say her lawyer, the Republican candidate for state attorney general, is grandstanding, using Sparks to push his campaign platform of getting seatbelts on all Kentucky school buses. Scott says no. People like Sparks and the more than 1,100 Kentucky students injured on school buses the past 6 years need a spokesman to erase a deadly double standard.
Better off children come to school now in a car with a seatbelt, whereas the poorer children of Kentucky ride exposed on our buses.
Kentucky officials say school bus seatbelt safety gains would be minimal and installation would be cost prohibitive. Scott counters that if bus drivers have seatbelts, so should the passengers. The school system says this is a state, not a local decision. Judge Sam Long says he'll consider the motion very carefully. In West Liberty, Kentucky, Randy Yohe for NBC News.
This is just one more opportunity for us, not only to promote the Brewers, promote Wisconsin, promote good transportation, which is good for the traveling public, but just to point out the wonderful things that are taking place in this great state.
Life will go on.
In evidence, and certainly Bjorklund would have. She hasn't been seen by relatives. She hasn't been seen by anyone that we can identify, and that's unlike her. And so her relatives, her relatives and close friends are very concerned. So of course we are also.
case is still that the disposition is still up in the air?
If he asks me a direct question, we typically answer.
Okay, so you'd be willing to have a chat with him next week if he calls?
I'm certainly not in the business of landing.
Again, they'll try to look at how their system is working to see if there's a breakdown someplace, inspect the system to see if there's a leakage someplace causing the contamination of the system. Apparently the testing at the actual water site was fine. It's downstream in the system that they started picking up the contamination. So they're going to try to find, okay, where is this contamination taking place so they can correct that situation. But until now, yes, they'll be super chlorinating the system, cleanse the bacteria out of it, clean the system. But they're still keeping an advisory on until, there's a contamination, we're not sure where it is. It could always reoccur until we've identified that and corrected the situations. They're basically saying, let's be precautious. So it's easier to find them. Like I said, back of the ears, back of the scalp, and sometimes young kids in the crowd. Obviously, that's an enlarged photo.
Yeah, oh yeah. No doubt about that.
But we have to stress that, yeah. We also
The signs are already up, and for the next week, construction crews will take over Interstate 35 in Duluth. They'll be repairing crumbling concrete and potholes and generally smoothing out the highway. But rush hour tomorrow should be anything but smooth.
We're talking some temporary delays at maybe 15 minutes, maybe up to a half hour during the rush period.
That means if you travel on I-35 in your commute to and from home, you'll be late for work if you don't allow yourself some extra time. Construction begins tomorrow morning on the southbound lane between 21st Avenue West and Central Avenue in Duluth. Crews will move to the northbound lanes by Wednesday or Thursday. If you're going in or out of town to the south, the recommended alternate route is Grand Avenue in West Duluth and Superior Street into the downtown. And if you're driving back and forth to Superior, Interstate 535, the Blotnick Bridge, is the preferred route. If you take the Bong, you'll end up in the middle of the construction. Highway officials say it's high time to fix this stretch of highway, which handles between 30 and 50,000 vehicles every day.
Well, right now this road, as you see out here with the patches and deterioration, has a lot of major faulting in it. If we don't do it at this time, it'll just get worse, cost more, and we won't have a road left.
Construction should be wrapped up by the middle of next week, and the repairs should last 10 to 15 years. In Duluth, Derek Hines, Channel 6 News.
But we are going to talk about issues now. There's just two of us. No more detractions, no more games. We're going to talk issues. We're going to talk jobs, we're going to talk streets, we're going to talk parks, and we're going to talk how you treat people. And that's what our campaign's about, and we're going to talk about those issues.
Best of luck in the
Why not? Pat, how did your chili place this year?
I didn't win, but we're always hoping for next year.
Okay. Well, in your opinion, who had the best chili?
Well, me, of course.
Well, then who actually...
It's dangerous ground, and I think that somebody's edging on some of the Supreme Court decisions. I think some of this is unconstitutional, and I really have a concern about the mentality of certain people in Congress against Indian people.
she did have. But last night we arranged to have her meet our undercover at a certain location, and that from there we developed enough probable cause to charge her.
We had a really good year this year. It was a lot of fun working down here this year. We had a lot of passengers. Once the weather got good in August, it was really great.
How do you like your job? Oh, it's a great job. I don't know. I see a lot of beautiful scenery, work with some fun people, and
and that is there's recent evidence that the levels of toxaphene in Lake Superior are rising.
Every
Susan? She was snoring. Okay.
During the post-mortem, we found that not only was she fairly obese, but she also had a heart that was enlarged to twice its normal size. So we're confident that that was the ultimate cause of her death.
We've positioned ourselves with more than 60 home-related businesses in the Lincoln Park District. We've also worked to...
There's some business retention projects that we're working on that we feel we're going to be very successful at keeping businesses in this area.